I think he did a very creative and masterful job of doing that. There's no guarantees. We have no crystal ball. But you know what we do have tonight, guys? For the first time in months, a little bit of swagger around this hockey team. Today, by 4 o'clock, people around the NHL were suddenly talking about the Washington Capitals again. And to the extent that they were talking about them for the last 2 or 3 months, it was in largely disparaging terms. So there's a period of here, 19 games, where we've got to get these guys integrated. Not a lot of time. And we'll just see what happens. But something had to be done. McPhee was creative. He did not have to sell off any assets, any prized assets. He gave up picks and Thomas Fleischman going back to the Hannon trade. You look at the big picture here of what McPhee did in terms of re-engineering this team in fairly short order. I think you have to be impressed.
Well, remember, too, McPhee has a history of getting these kind of guys in the deadline. 98, the most famous one was Esa and getting Brian Bellows. And those kind of veterans were key when the Caps actually went to the Stanley Cup Finals that year. Big difference this year, Arnott is an unrestricted free agent after the year. Sturm is an unrestricted free agent after the year. Weidman is the only guy who has a contract in the next year. And I think, having these guys fill needs, obviously with Green out, Weidman became more of a priority to get a guy who can move the puck and, break the puck up the ice. Obviously, Arnott was a huge need. Sturm is kind of interesting. McPhee made a comment today that said, look, we didn't have to give up anything to get him. Obviously, he's another guy with a lot of speed. Who knows how healthy he's actually going to be. But he said, well, if he plays 15 games for us, that's great. If he plays 3 games for us, well, you basically just lose the salary. It wasn't like they had to give up picks or prospects for Sturm. The other two, you give up David Steckel, he's a third, fourth line guy. He's more of a cult favorite here than probably his play deserves. You give up a second-round pick in 2012, a little bit deeper draft, but still, if Arnott gets you an extra round or two, do that. So I think it's interesting. Get a guy like the other comparison is the guy they gave up to South Carolina, Hausworth, and Steckel were not drafted. They're both free agents. They basically unsigned free agents. So you're essentially for nothing. A couple of years ago, you're getting these players.
Sky Kirsty and Jay Brooks, this is Double Overtime on 106.7 The Fan HD2. This is your Caps trade deadline special tonight. 800-636-1067. Text us on the Nova Datacom text machine, 95351. Jay Brooks likes to give me a lot of trash about that one.
A little difficult for you to say that last week, so you've been practicing. Hey, guys, I want to ask you, with, of course, the Caps in the 5th playoff position right now, are they satisfied with that? They just want to kind of gel down the stretch here? They're good to play the Pens if it were to hold true right now?
Well, I think the big thing I've always told people, I know I've told John this before, the big thing with the playoffs is not necessarily seedings, it's matchups. As we saw last year, with New Jersey and Philadelphia, Philadelphia matched up great against Jersey and, took the series against them. Montreal was a good matchup for the Caps, in terms of from Montreal's perspective. So I think while, I'm sure the Caps in an ideal world would like to catch Tampa Bay, I don't think it's a necessity. I think the East, obviously with, the big question in Pittsburgh is if Crosby's going to come back. And I think, if he's not back, the East is very wide open. I think Philadelphia has the most points. They're going to get the number 1 seed, but I think, they're still going to have some goaltending issues because Bobrovsky's he's only played about, I believe, his 45 games is his career high over in Russia. And he's going to be playing, if you go deep in the playoffs, you're playing over 100-plus games at preseason, regular season, playoffs. And there's probably not a worse spot in the league to be in goal than Philadelphia because the fans will get on you. And it's not necessarily that you give up a lot of goals, but if you give up a goal at the wrong time, that's an issue. I think the other teams would be, someone like Boston will be tough, but they have a history of playoff failure. They should have won it probably 2 years ago when they lost to Carolina in the second round. Last year they had Philly on the ropes and they didn't win. So it's wide open, and I think, they really have kind of tried to stabilize the offense, and I think it's really improved their playoff hopes.
Jay, I think a compelling case could be made that the Capitals want to stay right where they are in the 5 seed. You win the division and get the 3 seed, say, just for sake of argument. And draw number 6. What if 6 is the New York Rangers? How's that matchup looked in the last few weeks? So, again, look, hockey players are very prideful, and I'm sure every single guy in the Caps room would say, we want the division. We don't want to yield the Southeast, for whatever good that's done them. But bottom line is, I think the best first-round matchup for this team is against your Penguins, and who in hockey doesn't want to see that, even though it's not going to be the same Penguins. It'll still be a riveting matchup, and I guarantee you those will be one-goal games every night almost.
Right now we're looking at Mike Green not being able to come back for a couple of weeks. But for the Penguins, Sidney Crosby, we don't know when he's coming back. He's not even skating yet. And so that means that, he might not be back till the end of the year. Now, they made a couple moves, but is it really worth them to make, these moves when you don't know if Sidney Crosby is back? You've already lost Evgeny Malkin for the year. Brooks Orpik goes down. He's down 4 to 6 weeks now. Chris Kunitz has been banged up. They have a lot of problems right there. And if the Caps played them in the first round, who, by the way, the Caps have absolutely dominated this team in the regular season the last few years. I mean, this could be the matchup that the Caps really want compared to a Philadelphia team who might be playing Buffalo the first round. And that's not a very good matchup right there because if you play a hot goaltender in the playoffs, and we saw what happened with the Capitals last year, anything could happen in that series.
Well, Pittsburgh, I think, needs to be discussed in the context of what happened today, too. You guys saw the same reports I did on Twitter that the Penguins were nosing around Jason Arnott as well. And we all in this studio remember what what Ray Shero did to George McPhee in 2009.
Billy
Came
Guerin.
down to Billy Guerin. That series, everybody knows, went 7 games. And if you take Bill Guerin out of that Penguin sweater and he's in a Washington Capital sweater instead, I think you'd have a hard time saying that series didn't turn around. So I think it was very important for McPhee, just maybe psychologically, to beat Shero. To even no matter what Jason Arnott does here in the next 2 or 3 months, just to have that psychological